good morning, everyone. My name is Ashish. Amresh. I'm an associate professor in computer science. My research area is mostly looking at games for behavior change and designing games working within the healthcare context. I've been doing game design work in obesity, nutrition, and more recently in the area of vaccination. So today's presentation, I'm going to not use a standard format of PowerPoint talk, but just talk about the game itself. I'm trying to play it with you along the way. So the project was funded by Merck Foundation, a big pharmaceutical company. The idea here was that we're seeing early interest in vaccinations during the COVID-19 pandemic, but the interest tapers off as the pandemic progresses. And especially you see very little interest in the younger population, youth, teenage, and young adults with respect to boosters, second doses, and so on. So the goal of the project was to look at games as a way to do some behavior change here, which is to improve vaccination uptake in this specific population. The idea that we proposed for the project was to look at a specific setting of vaccine clinics. Typically what happens in vaccine clinics are parents and their children, young adults, teenagers, usually are waiting for an appointment, and at that period of time, there is an opportunity to engage them with something more educational and interactive like a game. So the idea was to design something for that short duration of time, typically about 5 to 10 minutes, while they're waiting for their appointments, with an intention that it would lead to some change in their behavior. The other aspect of this project that was critical was it had to be designed with what we call a dyad, which is the child and the parent in mind, rather than an individual. This is especially critical in this settings where the vaccination decisions are typically made by the parent, but there is an element of buy-in from the child as well. So it's a very unique situation where you have to design a game with a multiple human element in the mix. And so these are kind of some of the challenges. So the game had to be short, but the game also had to meet these challenges of multiple people working on it. So the theoretical basis was well-known theory of social cognition that Bandura talked about back when. And so the idea here was to look at attitudes, which usually came from the younger audience because their attitude to getting a vaccine is usually poor. Knowledge, which is another construct in the theory, which is usually a more parental construct where the parents are not as knowledgeable to make a decision. And then agency, which is a dual concept, which is trying to make sure that you provide the control of the decision making to the game, to the dyad. So using these three kind of theoretical foundations from the theory of social cognition, we try to design this game, and I'm just going to play a little bit about the game so that you can see how it's all coming out. At the moment, we are in the clinics, we're collecting data, we're looking at doing a, not very long term, but about a 6-month study to see how the game influences decision making in the dyads, and study that and present it in the future. But right now, this is the final version of the game that I'm presenting at the conference. So I won't play the tutorial here, but I'll just kind of play the game to kind of show you what's happening. It's a school environment. We have a little bit of diversity here in the NPCs. You're playing a God game kind of a mode, so you are not in the game, but you're making decisions on behalf of the NPCs that are in the game. You have the wellness clinic on the left, on the right. This is a unique element here. It's called the isolation zone. That is when you need to be isolated and prevent the spread of the pandemic. So the idea here is that you would need to save as many children, in this case, as a God mode player, you're trying to get the highest score by saving as many children, which means that you are preventing them from getting the COVID infection. And you do that by making decisions on their behalf. So you'll see by clicking these NPCs, you will either have a choice to convince them. So they're in 3 states. Some don't need convincing, which is kind of what the reflection of the real world is. Some need convincing, and some are absolutely, I'm not going to get the vaccine, right? So this is what's happening in reality, so we're trying to kind of do that. So if you click someone else, and I'm just going to try and see if you find. So this one does not need convincing, so you can move them into the vaccine clinic and start vaccinating. You'll also get to see some real-world perspectives where after they finish their first dose, there will be a timer, and they'll be ready for their second dose. So you won't see your score go up until you have actually given them the second dose. So you'll see that slide bar takes time. So it is still a game. You have to get the high score, which means you have to really manage your resources well and try and get that going. Now, when you try to convince someone, this is where the dyad actions come in. So this is the knowledge part of it, where the parent has to be brought in, and you discuss these options along with the parent while you're sitting in the clinic. So you have to make a choice based on the questions, which one would be appropriate. So, for example, I can say that, and it'll kind of give you whether you're right or not, and then you kind of move forward. And so once you get that correct, so if you click that person, they are now ready to be moved into the clinic because they don't need convincing anymore. From time to time, you'll see this ambulance at the bottom, trying to see if there is anyone in the isolation zone. So sometimes you'll have to see, again, it's very rare. You find some folks ready for the second dose, so you can drag them into the clinic. And this is designed for tablets, so the mouse interface is not the best. So they are provided tablets in the clinics, and they're just using drag and drop using the swipes. Okay, so here's a person who is not going to be convinced, so you'll have to put them in the isolation zone. You'll see the ambulance take them away. So this is kind of giving a little bit more about, hey, if you're going to be one of those naysayers, you may have to be admitted or your situation will get really worse. And you saw that the score got 1 because I gave that person the second dose. And the idea is before the time runs out, it's a really short duration here. You're trying to work together with your parent and make these decisions for as many children as possible to get them all the way to the second dose. And the goal here is that with this joint process of changing the attitude for the children and improving the knowledge for the parent, you're able to kind of tackle the dyad as a player rather than an individual. That's the key element here. So to try and design this for a dyad, and we're hoping, we don't know the answer to that, we're hoping that in the next few months, 6 months, we'll have some results to share about how well this actually worked with the target population. Okay, so questions? I can continue to play more and to see other things, but that's basically the idea of the game.
Thank you, Professor Amresh, for your presentation. Someone want to ask a question? Okay, so I have one. Do you think, I am wondering, do you think that it could be possible to extend the concept of this game to another disease vaccines such as rubella or measles or HPV vaccine?
Yeah, absolutely. This is designed with COVID in mind, the knowledge elements like the questioning. But, the situation also is kind of like a school where, you have a high chance of infection. But the idea of having a gameplay that helps change attitude and then a series of questions that helps improve knowledge, that combination can work in any dyad-based environment. So for example, for HPV, again, the parents are responsible for the HPV vaccine for the children. So you could use the idea in this in this particular format to apply for some other vaccination goal. The other thing is you could also change it based on the population's community. So if you were in a rural area, it could be a different environment. This is designed for clinics that are in a metropolitan urban setting, so that's why you see the environment reflect that. You could also change the language to be, of the community's preference. So there are simple modifications that can be made without a lot of effort that could translate this into either different vaccination problems or different communities. But I don't want to say anything more until we have results, because if this doesn't really work, then we don't want to go pursue this route. So the verdict is still not out there about when this is going to be pursued.
I don't understand how this playing scenario is. So is this a tablet shared by the parent and child?
Yeah, so the tablets are provided to the clinics, and while they're waiting for their appointment, the tablet is given to both the child and the parent to jointly play the game on the tablet together.
So have you actually done playing sessions?
We have done usability studies with dyads just for usability. We haven't. We are now in the process of collecting data in the clinics with the parents and children. We haven't completed that study yet.
Because my experience, I've done pair programming in my computer studies course. So you need to assure a kind of like balance, and who's doing what. How do you do that?
So the way it works is when you click someone that needs convincing, it freezes the game. So it is not at that time a highly active environment. And during the points when the game is frozen, the child and the parent have to discuss to answer the questions together. What I did was, I played it so many times, I kind of know what the answers are, so I was able to move forward quickly in the interest of time. But during the usability studies we did, we found that actually parents and children discussed every option together to come up with the right, and many times they don't come up with the right answer and they have to try again, because if they don't get all three questions right, the NPC in the game won't be ready for the second dose. So for them to get a higher score, which is what's driving the child, they have to actually think about these answers. That's what's driving the parent, because that's where the knowledge is essential to be improved, is on the parent side. Whereas the score element, the game element, is where the driving force is on the child side. So together we see in our usability studies that parents and child actually nudge each other to make the right decisions while the game is frozen, so that they can get the highest score. Again, this is all usability. We didn't do it in the clinic yet, so a lot more information is going to be made available in the near future.
Okay, thank you.